Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Don't Talk During the Movie with Bianca Groening.
And Luca Groening.
And today's episode is a bit far out of my personal comfort zone as a person who enjoys movies. This is going to be about Marvel versus DC. Now, this is a debate that has been around since the dawn of time, the dawn of comics, and the dawn of film, and the dawn of all these cinematic universes that I can't follow. And now I'm going to state, off the bat, that I do not know very much about either of these. I don't read much of the comics. I've seen a fair share of movies, but a lot of them I haven't. So if I continually ask, who is that, or who is that person, or what are they doing, why are they doing that, it's just because I genuinely don't know. Now, Luca, on the other hand, has a bit more expertise in this sort of superhero-y genre, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I've followed it a little while, and I've always been a fan of superheroes as a kid and whatnot. It was a really easy adaptation to go from watching some of my favorite animated cartoons to translating into some of the better movies. Which is why I definitely have a lot more of a say on the matter, especially when it comes to, okay, what is a better adaptation? And what is a better translation of an original idea?
So we're setting off the basis that Luca's opinion already matters more than mine.
Well, I mean,
it is fair. You do know more about this kind of stuff than I do. However, I will be judging these movies, at least the movies that I have seen, more as movies themselves rather than a part of their own cinematic universe.
Yeah, and their connection to a comic, because being a comic book fan, a lot of the time you can get a bit seeped in the fact that, it's very accurate to the comic, and you don't really get a good representation of, is it a good movie? Does it make a good film?
So, I guess let's start off with a bit of opinions on both of these. We're talking specifically about the movies, not about the comics. So, for example, if you prefer DC Comics but think the Marvel movies are better, then that's, your own opinion. I guess, my thoughts are, again, I haven't read many of the comics. I wouldn't necessarily know. But, I tend to say that the better DC movies are 1,000 times better than the best Marvel movies. However, I do think that Marvel puts out more consistently decent films. I'm not going to say any of them are real masterclasses of cinema, but more consistently I can tolerate their movies. DC I can't say the same thing about.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you. DC and Marvel being in competition is kind of interesting because DC and Marvel film-wise at least, DC kind of dominated the entirety of the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s outside of, say, a few hits. Marvel really started to get in the game and start punching back when they dropped Iron Man, which is, to be fair, is a fantastic movie, and it really put them in the ring. But at the time they dropped Iron Man, the problem was that DC was peaking in quality, so it did really set off this cascade, if you will, of competitive ideas, where DC team felt they needed to keep up with everything Marvel was doing, and Marvel felt like they needed to conform to a lot of the standards that DC had put out themselves over film, over these types of movies, right? So, looking back, we look at the 1980s, and we see a lot of the early Batman films, we see stuff like that, and then on the other side of the lake or the ocean, I guess you could say, in the early 2000s, after DC had kind of had their dominance over the film genre for the longest time, dropping early Batman movies. Obviously, Superman is well known for being, okay, even back in the 1960s,
Yeah.
And, Marvel, when they first kind of debuted their first Marvel films, so, Iron Man, the early Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, that's when DC kind of realized, holy crap, this is an actual competition for us. Because they can match our special effects. They can match our character plots, because Marvel and DC are the two titans of comic books. And so they have equally an amazing amount of stories to draw from.
Right.
But for me, what really kind of started digging Marvel's grave in the 2000s, and the reason why I feel like Marvel in the 2000s never surpassed DC, was Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan came around and acquired the license to Batman, I think not much longer after Iron Man. And they gave him the idea of Iron Man gave DC the idea, if you can believe it, of making a realistic superhero. Making a superhero that could technically exist in real life. Of course, the science isn't all there. Yeah. It's more there than it is in Batman than it is in Iron Man.
Yeah, and then we got Christian Bale for Batman Begins.
And Batman Begins was set a new precedent for superhero movies. And, like, if you look at reviews, Batman Begins kind of started the fire that Dark Knight continued of having superhero films be respected by film critics.
Yeah, and I will say, as a person who, again, is not a huge fan of superhero movies, The Dark Knight is my favorite superhero movie. It's the only one that I will watch, like, on my own volition. I will say, hey, we gotta watch a movie. Do you want to watch The Dark Knight? I'll never say that about any other superhero movie.
Yeah, because it's not just a popcorn flick. Because it's not a spectacle. And at the time, that wasn't really what DC was doing. I mean, you look at, like, Tim Burton's Batman.
I love Tim Burton's
which are good. Like, it's good. I love Tim Burton's, the first Batman film. The ones that followed that weren't directed by him weren't as good. But that initial film is really good. Yeah. It's a really good superhero movie. It's corny, it's cheesy, it's action-packed.
And it's got Jack Nicholson, so, you know.
Yes, it has Jack Nicholson. However, it's not anything really but a popcorn flick.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's not true. It's got some interesting shit going on with it. Jack Nicholson's performance is, like, drop dead amazing. But it's still a superhero movie. It's fun. It's not supposed to be deep and thought-provoking and really ask the big questions.
Yeah, and The Dark Knight's really the only superhero movie that ever really did that for me. It's the only one that's ever made me feel like I was actually, like, thinking about something after the movie ended, which is, you know, a rare thing for me. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and so that's where, with me at least, I disagree with you a little bit, because I feel like that's what they tried to do. And as a response to The Dark Knight exploding and getting really big, Marvel obviously realized they needed to serialize their product and they needed to do something new. So they created the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which we now know as the MCU, right?
Right.
And the MCU is basically stating that every film directly produced by Marvel, not by Sony, because obviously we have, like, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies that don't count. They were coming out at the time.
Yeah, I don't like
But all of the films that Marvel themselves were making and producing, they're all in the same existing canon and universe, and they all connect. So Spider-Man realistically has met Hulk in this universe, and Iron Man in this universe has realistically met Thor, you know, and that was pulled to a head at obviously the Avengers film, which connected all the stories. But when they connected the Avengers film to Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 1, I was like, wow, this is something awesome. This is new, you know? This was like a big, I guess you could say it's almost like everyone's here, you know?
Yeah,
They're bringing the whole gang's here. They're bringing the universes together. And I thought that was awesome. Because obviously it had been done a million times in the comics, but we couldn't really replicate that on film as well, because you need so many drop-dead good actors for these characters, right?
Yeah.
You need to create a good, consistent story for multiple people in one film, and that works really good in comic books because you're not thinking as much. But it doesn't go as well with the progression of a film because there's a lot more structure you need to think about. So I think that the initial Marvel movie, the initial expanded MCU film, Avengers, I think that film is amazing, even though it has glaring issues, the biggest being lighting. It looks like a TV movie.
Okay, I'm going to get into this, because I dug a little bit into this in last episode, when I talked about color grading. So color grading, for those who are uninitiated to, editing of films, which I don't expect many people to be, is basically the art of creating contrast and tone and color. What you do in color grading is you edit certain things. So, for example, if I wanted to make a movie like The Lighthouse, so I take my raw footage. First of all, I remove all color, make it black and white. Then I darken the dark tones and brighten the bright tones to create as much contrast as possible without making the image look super blown out. And no color grading can work well for some movies. Like, for example, a movie that utilizes no color grading really, really well is Requiem for a Dream, because it's going for a very gritty, realistic, concrete look. But with a movie like Avengers, or like any of the early Marvel movies that before Guardians of the Galaxy, again, when they learned that they could color grade, the movies just aren't color graded. Like, it's not like they're color graded badly. They just did not color grade the movie. So everything looks like a parking garage. Like, it's just...
No, it looks like a film set. It looks like a film set. It's very bright and blown out. There's no...
It's just a lot of gray.
Yeah, and the suits look good, and the practical effects and CGI look good, but they don't have anything to look good against because there's not cool environments or backgrounds or colors or anything interesting going for the characters. And so, like, that is what Christopher Nolan's Batman film did so good. The color grading in that movie is amazing. It's so good. Yeah. Like, the greens of the Joker scenes and even in Batman Begins and also The Dark Knight Rises, which are both also really good movies. Dark Knight Rises kind of drops in quality from The Dark Knight, but it's really, really hard to follow up a film as good as The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And they did have some problems with the first few scenes that were sheerly technical. Like, they messed up the audio, like, playback on Bane. So Bane is deafening. Bane is louder than jet engines.
It's always really funny to watch that, and it's like...
Because, like, he'll start talking, and the jet engines will quiet when he starts talking, which means
and you're like, wait a second.
They haven't edited in the sound effect. They've just thrown the sound effect on top of it with all of the background and white noise that drowns out the sound.
Yeah, so it just kind of sounds
it was just
bad.
But the film itself is actually really good, especially as the film keeps going.
Right.
And you meet more and I mean, obviously you get to know Bane and you get to know Talia and you get to know some of the really good characters. But that's not really all that important. All you need to know is the Christopher Nolan Batman series. The 3 films were all bang out successes. They all did really good, and they're all respected by critics as being surprisingly good, versions of an idea that wasn't really considered seriously.
Yeah, of a story that's been told so many times.
And obviously, the comics are very serious. Some of the comics get very serious, but they've never really translated that well into film until that point.
Right.
And Iron Man was a bit goofy. Even though it held itself pretty seriously in a realistic world, he was still cracking jokes and being unreal, like, I guess you could say unrealistic.
Right.
He's still being a comic book character in a fight, as opposed to being a human being dealing with some real messed up stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously Christian Bale and Heath Ledger and just all of the...
Both of them. They're both amazing actors.
They're both great leads, and they play off of each other really well, and you can see Heath Ledger really starting to fuck with Christian Bale's head in the movie. Like, even outside of the character, you can see Christian Bale is visually disturbed, and when an actor is, like, realistically reacting to something like that...
I just think of the 1972 Willy Wonka... Sorry, 1971 Willy Wonka. I don't know, like, a good example of this kind of thing that I just find funny and isn't really super related to this is the giant explosion scene at the end.
The freak out.
Yeah, the freak out scene with Gene Wilder where he starts yelling at the kid and he's like...
Gene Wilder is Willy Wonka, for anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah,
Bianca speaks in actors. Willy Wonka starts yelling at Charlie.
Charlie, and he starts yelling at him and he's like, wrong, sir, wrong. He's screaming at this kid, and he's like 12, I think, was the actor's age, and like, and the like most horrifying yet also incredibly hilarious part of it is that they did not tell the kid
or Uncle Joe
or the guy who plays Uncle Joe that Gene Wilder was gonna start screaming at them. Like,
Grandpa Joe.
They had no idea.
It came out of nowhere. And so the Grandpa
guy
Joe's reaction
is like,
is real. Him being like, no, let's get out of here. He's like, you're a human monster.
His expression is like, what?
Yeah,
like,
his whole reaction to that scene, him yelling it.
And the kid is just terrified. You can see the fear in his eyes. He's like, oh my God. Why is this man screaming?
And it's both awful, like, it's both terrible that they, like, didn't tell this kid,
but also so funny.
But it's so genius because it got such a realistic reaction.
Yeah, and that scene really does hit at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
I was scared of it when I was a kid. I was like, God, no, it's a scene where Gene Wilder starts screaming again.
But it's visual anger, and that translates really well into Heath Ledger's performance, who is very much method acting.
Yeah. And
he did so many things on that script. So if you don't know, the actor for Alfred was supposed to have a confrontation scene in the balcony. You know, when they have the party on the balcony?
Yes.
And Heath Ledger breaks in, starts shooting up the ceiling. Heath Ledger is the Joker. I can't believe we haven't said that yet.
Yeah, Heath Ledger's Joker and Christian Bale's Batman.
Yeah. The Joker starts shooting up the room, screaming up into the ceiling and stuff. Everybody starts freaking out, right? And Alfred was supposed to come up to the Joker and, like, tell him off. Like, tell him, no, you're not allowed to be here. But the actor was so afraid, because this was the first time he had ever seen Heath in makeup, that he didn't. He just didn't. So Heath Ledger just ad-libbed and continued the scene without addressing it.
Right.
Without even, like, going up to him and talking to him. He just kept going because he knew that he was that scared. That's the type of genius that we got from that movie, and it's so sad that he didn't get to continue his acting career, because that movie would have absolutely just sent him to the sky, because everybody loves that performance now.
Yeah.
He would have been like...
We live in a society.
He would have been like the Leonardo DiCaprio. He would have been like one of the most respected actors alive. But, of course, he died before he could really do too many movies. He was only in a few. And of those few movies, I guess you could say Dark Knight is one of the only big ones. There are a few other pretty big ones, but it's a real tragedy.
I love 10 Things I Hate About You. That's one of the
that's a
ones
really
I've
good
seen.
one too. But it's I mean, it's pretty sad.
Yeah.
But we
very.
went on a bit of a tangent with the Dark Knight, which is obviously a very important thing to bring up in the DC versus Marvel, because I mean, it is the best DC gets. Spoiler alert, where it's only downhill from here.
Literally. So I guess going from here, I can say that I guess the general consensus around Marvel movies in general, by most people, is that you go into it not expecting it to be an amazing movie. You go into it thinking, I'm going to sit down and be with some friends and enjoy some popcorn and, watch a good movie.
This is amongst films critics. And by the way, we're going to do a bit of shit talking of Marvel. If you like Marvel, I'm just going to preface this by saying there is not a single... There are a few, but most Marvel movies that are released today are not bad films by design. Our problem with the films and critics' problem with the films is that they are very formulaic. But if you enjoy the formula, you'll love the film. So I guess then to translate with formula, DC realized they needed to change the formula a little bit themselves. After the Dark Knight trilogy ended, Christopher Nolan was supposed to come back and direct a Superman film. However, push came to shove, and he never really got that opportunity. I believe it was something to do with him having to film other movies. But basically what ended up happening is they got a new guy to direct Superman, who had a similar, but, I mean, I guess you could say a bit less prolific career in film, Zack Snyder. Okay? And
we talked about him last episode.
I don't hate Zack Snyder. And Zack Snyder's debut into the superhero film genre was pretty solid. Which was, of course, Man of Steel. Man of Steel is a Superman movie. It's about Superman. It's set in a more gritty and realistic area. Its characters are supposed to be more well-written and less comic booky. Basically, they're trying to do Christopher Nolan's Superman. With, obviously, without the major factor of Christopher Nolan. He's not there. And so that's the film's biggest failings is it is kind of tonally confused. It's trying to be super dark, gritty, realistic, take me seriously kind of movie. But at the same time, it has so many superhero trope ideas.
Right.
Like the whole scene with the tornado is just so Sam Raimi Spider-Man, which isn't a bad thing because I love those movies, but it just feels tropey and dumb and like, oh, his dad got killed by a tornado. Like, you know how hard it is to get killed by a tornado? Do you know how hard you have to try to die to a tornado?
Right.
It seems very comic booky. And that's not a problem, but the film that they're going for is a lot more serious. And then you have General Zod, who is my favorite character in the movie. He's hilarious. He's played by Michael Shannon, and if you know who Michael Shannon is, you know he's like a bug-eyed human being. He's like the most like intense actor. He tries to go for the Christopher Walken approach of like become your character and like scream so hard your face looks like it's trying to escape your body.
Walken?
Yes.
The scream. Okay.
Not Christopher Walken with the screaming, but Christopher Walken with the method acting and the investment in every single role he's in. So what I can say is he took the role seriously. What I can't say is he didn't really play him all that seriously, because he ends up as kind of an angry goofball the whole movie, who you more want to laugh at than like be like, oh, he's intimidating. He's not a Thanos. He's a I don't even know. He's a Jack Nicholson Joker.
Yeah.
And so the movie just has some weird tonal issues, but other than that, the idea wasn't bad. I thought Henry Cavill as Superman initially was a fantastic choice. He looks like Superman. He acts like Superman. And Henry Cavill, traditionally, is a fantastic actor, which is why I'm kind of confused how stilted he was in this film. But I guess he was coming into his element, so I can't really blame him too much on that. But, I mean, overall, again, that was an entry point for the DC cinematic universe. You see, DC hadn't just forgotten that Marvel had done their whole MCU Avengers type shtick, right? They wanted a piece of that pie. And for that, they needed to set up a DC cinematic universe. So,
boy, did they.
Even before they released Man of Steel, even before Man of Steel was put to theaters, they had a plan. They set up Batman versus Superman.
Oh, okay.
Which
is what I have seen.
The beginning of the end. Okay? Batman versus Superman is terrible.
Yeah.
If you like Batman versus Superman, good for you. You can have fun where we can't, but I hated Batman versus Superman.
I watched it with you and a couple people we lived with at the time. And when I was like maybe, I don't know, I must have been like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And I shit you not, I have never been more bored in a movie than in that movie.
Yeah, and she was 10.
Because I was, I was 10. I can be entertained by anything that moves and is loud. And yet, somehow, this movie was able to bore me more than anything I have watched in theater. And that has not changed. I have seen after last season, and yet I was somehow more bored in Batman vs. Superman.
Dawn of Justice.
Than in after last season, which is a feat and a half if you've seen that movie.
So, with that being said, what did they do wrong? So, anybody who's an avid comic book fan knows what The Dark Knight Returns is. The Dark Knight Returns is basically an old Batman who's kind of tired of Superman's shit.
Right.
Gets really pissed at him for trying to shut down the Justice League and trying to prevent him from fighting, and he goes to beat the fuck out of Superman and try and kill him pretty much.
Which should be really interesting.
The comic book is fantastic. The Dark Knight Returns comic book is gritty and awesome and sad. It's like depressing. It's like you're watching this just relic of a man trying to reclaim his former glory and failing, and he's using surrogates, people around him, to do it, and it feels really shitty. But it's also a really awesome comic book, and the confrontation and the Batman suit in that is just, everything is just awesome in Dark Knight Returns. Read Dark Knight Returns if you like comic books, if you haven't yet. In any case, Dark Knight Returns translates really poorly into Batman versus Superman because there's a major problems with the translation, okay? The first problem is his reasoning. So, Batman wants to kill the Superman because? It's never really well explained.
Yeah, why did he want to kill him?
He says that Superman is a threat. But Batman also recognized that Superman was a threat in the comic books, but Batman didn't just attack Superman to provoke violence and potentially end the world. He was smart. He schemed. He had these audio logs that he set up, which is actually a really cool part of it, is he had logs about how to kill every single member of the Justice League if it ever came to them betraying him, including himself. He made a log talking about how he'd like, okay, if I ever go AWOL, people would need to know this to kill me. Which is, I think, just an awesome part. But that's because he couldn't trust Superman, because he couldn't trust anybody. But in this, he can't trust Superman, so he's just like, okay, I'll just kill him. I'll murder him. I'll blow him up with a kryptonite spear.
What I feel like the only part about Batman versus Superman that, because like you're telling me all this and it's going completely over my head, and I'm like, and I've seen this movie once since I saw it initially. I saw it once a couple years ago, and the only thing I remember about the entire movie is save Martha.
Martha. The Martha scene. Everyone loves it.
Martha. That's all I know.
To those who haven't seen the film, there is a scene...
Consider yourself lucky.
Because first of all, consider yourself lucky. Second of all, there is a scene in which our boy Superman is dying. He's got he's got his shit busted up because, of course, the Batman vs Superman fight is the last 10 minutes of the movie, or not the last 10.
Yeah,
but
for a movie called Batman vs Superman,
there's not a lot of
fighting
Batman
behind-
versus Superman.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Batman versus Random Goon number 5
And Lex Luthor,
who's
which-
played by Jesse Eisenberg.
It's bizarre. Jesse Eisenberg was the guy who played Mark Zuckerberg, and I'm like,
But he plays Lex Luthor like the Riddler. So he would be a really good Riddler, but he's Lex Luthor, which is just bad casting. And anyway, so in the final fight, our boy Superman gets blown up by a bunch of kryptonite bombs, and he's like taking a hit, and Batman is like standing on his neck and pointing a spear at his noggin, and he's gonna kill him, and he's totally gonna kill him, and Superman says, I need to save Martha, that they're going to kill Martha. And Batman goes, how did you know that name? Mind you, Batman doesn't know how smart Superman is. Superman could just be using this as fear tactics. But for some reason, when Batman hears his mother's name, he just breaks down. I wouldn't have much of a problem with this, because it is kind of consistent with Batman's character. But right now, he's dealing with the biggest threat in the world. And we've had situations like this before in the past, in the comics, and Batman doesn't do this. So first of all, out of character for him to just stop trying to kill Superman.
I can only just think about the way
Yeah.
that Henry Cavill says
Well,
it.
he says it like he's being strangled, which
Save
makes sense.
Martha, but it's like such terrible acting.
It's bad. It's very bad acting.
so
To preface,
funny.
this is all acted horribly, except for Ben Affleck, who isn't a character. He's just kind of a brick wall. But so Ben Affleck, Ben Affleck plays Batman. He is.
Ben Affleck, man.
He's like, no. Why did you say that name? How do you know that name? And he's like, Martha. It's my mother's name. No, Lois from Family Guy. No, Lois Lane breaks in and screams, it's his mother's name. And Batman's like, oh my god, we have the same mother's name. Wow. And you know
It's
what?
almost like Martha's a super common name.
It's almost like Martha's a pretty common old woman name. In any case, you know what Batman should have done in that moment if he actually wanted to kill Superman? He would have said, oh, really? Stabbed him right in the face. But he didn't. He's like, oh my god, my mother's name is Martha.
And your mom's name is Martha. It's like when two kids are like talking to each other in kindergarten, and it's like, oh, I have this best friend whose name is Samantha.
And
I have a friend named Samantha too. It's like
and
that energy.
instantly, all of the drama, all of the rage that Batman has against Superman, which is poorly explained, all of the drive to save his mother Lex Luthor has, because remember, Lex Luthor like blackmails Superman. That's another thing. He blackmails Superman into trying to kill Batman, which makes sense because Superman would never try to hurt another human being unless he like absolutely had to. So yeah.
He crashes into buildings all the time.
But the problem, which is uncharacteristic, is the amount of mutually assured destruction Superman does by just slamming into things too fast. He's like a bad pilot. He's like Harrison Ford on a Monday morning. You know, oh, I'm gonna drive an old unsafe plane and crash into a golf club full of people. You know, it's
this is Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford.
What?
Harrison Ford owned a plane. Has crashed twice. He's crashed his plane twice. Whatever. This was a stupid allegory. I don't know why I brought it up. In any case, the real, like, the drive for Superman trying to kill Batman is his mom's in prison. But realistically, Superman would just be able to fucking Dragon Ball Z teleport, save his mother. Like, there were like 7 armed guards around her. Batman easily dispatched them when he went to go save her later in the film. So why couldn't Superman just do it? Whatever. Is it important? And he's like, oh, he doesn't know where she is. Yeah, but he can hear the entire planet. He has super hearing. This is shown when he flies into space. He could just say, okay, I'm going to go kill Batman. Fly up into space, listen for his mom, fly back down, punch 4 guys in the face, which is usually enough for him, because he hits like a bullet, save his mom, boom, you don't have to kill Batman. Batman can keep throwing his bitch fit on the floor. But whatever, they have to have a revelation, because the plot has to move forward. So all of the bad will, after the Martha scene, all of the bad will between the two of them, Batman's dementia-riddled paranoia at this point is just gone. He no longer wants to kill Superman for no reason. And Superman has decided that, I guess, hey, working with this guy ain't so bad. Well, fuck my mom, I guess. You know? He decides to work with Batman. And then he says, okay, Batman, you go save my mom. Which is like, what? What? Batman is an unaugmented human. He is unproven. Well, no, he is proven. He beat the fuck out of Superman. But that was with kryptonite, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you could just, like, in an instant save your mother, and you're sending this guy to go do it?
Yeah.
I get that Batman...
It has the friggin' intensity.
I get that they have to do it because they need to prove themselves. Okay, you prove yourself by saving your mom. I'll prove myself by, I don't know, punching Lex Luthor in the face.
Yeah, I don't know. This Lex Luthor in this movie, Jesse Eisenberg, has...
So annoying.
Has
stupid.
Has, like, he eats, like, blue raspberry Jolly Ranchers, and he has...
He's like a hipster.
He has, like, the same amount of, like, you know, evil and terrifying level of, like, the Lex Luthor in that superhero peanut butter commercial that people would see back in, like, the 90s, where he's, like, has, you know, Superman trapped in a cage with kryptonite. He's like, now you're going to tell me what your recipe for your peanut butter is, and it's like,
yeah,
this slow day for evil.
Yeah, exactly. But no, that this is true. He's not intimidating. He's just an annoying, petulant child. He only gets to Superman because Superman is brick stupid in this movie. Okay? He's really dumb. He's really dumb. The fact that he tries to reason with Batman after he knows that Batman has insane super dementia is hilarious. Also, Lex Luthor's plan, he like tries to blame all this shit on Superman, but like any type of forensics would prove that Superman didn't blow up the court. He placed like C4 bombs on the supports of the court. Do you think Superman is gonna be like, yes, we'll place explosives at the structural weaknesses of the building? No, he's gonna Homelander style laser the entire building into oblivion. That's what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
He's not gonna place bombs, and he's not gonna be all smart and tactical. He's gonna blow it up. Okay, this was clearly a terrorist attack. This wasn't Superman explosion farting and blowing up the whole fucking building. That's not what Superman does. So your plan doesn't work for 2 seconds because they're going to think, oh, Superman did it. And then 5 minutes later, forensic investigators are going to come and say, yes, looks like the blast came from multiple different locations across the building. It's almost like Superman doesn't instant transmit and also doesn't have C4. So, like, he clearly didn't do it. There's obviously somebody trying to frame Superman. But the problem is everyone in this universe is so dumb. True. Everyone is so dumb. The politicians are dumb. They let the homeless man with the bomb on him get into the court, which would not work in real life.
Never.
Not the homeless man, the wheelchair guy.
Right.
I forgot it was a wheelchair. He was like, he got hurt in the accident at the beginning of the movie. There was this accident where Superman did some dumb shit and crashed into a building.
I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, and then one of the guys in the building, he was in a wheelchair. He got, like, hospitalized. Whatever, we're spending too much time on this movie. The movie is dumb. The final fight is with Doomsday, and they just made Doomsday a big dumb rock man, which he is in the comics, to be fair. But he's not like strong. He's not an actual threat. Superman just basically kills him by, like, I don't know, impaling himself on his sword, which is just inherently, like, really dumb. And Superman, like, you could have done this so many better ways. Why are you such an idiot in this movie? Yeah. But whatever. Superman is dead, and we killed him. No, okay, so Superman's dead. And then at the very end of the movie, you see some dirt moving on his coffin, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I knew he wasn't dead."
Because it's Superman.
It's Superman.
They're
not gonna kill off Henry Cavill's Superman before the Justice League movie even gets made.
Yeah,
Come on.
It's like what's its fuck from South Park.
Yeah. Kenny.
Kenny from South Park.
Kenny from South Park. You see Kenny die, and he dies ever so much that it's just like, okay, this isn't a threat anymore.
Yeah, the episode Kenny dies. That one. Ow.
Yeah.
That one hit. Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
what a deep death.
Deep death. Anyway, okay, so moving on from that, because we talked about Batman versus Superman for like maybe 10 minutes.
Let's go back to Marvel.
Marvel. What even is there to say about Marvel? Okay, so I'm gonna say that, you know, there are some Marvel movies that I really like. Like, I think Endgame is pretty good.
Yes.
I really like Thor Ragnarok. I actually just recently saw that because I saw a guy in a comment section talking about how Thor Ragnarok, like, ruined the series. But Thor is kind of a garbage series, and he was like, I don't want to support Taika Waititi because he's a douchebag because he ruined Thor. And I'm like, he didn't ruin shit. There wasn't shit to ruin.
He took a massive crap on the previous Thor because the previous Thor sucks.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Even Thor in the early Avengers movies isn't a character. He only starts becoming a character after Ragnarok. And sure, he becomes a comic relief character, which pisses me off because he's not really that funny. Like, he's not a comic relief guy. He's a stoic guy in a comic relief setting.
Right.
So if they played on that comedy as opposed to making him like, oh, I'm funny, I'm drunk, and I'm fat character, then I think it would have worked a bit better. That was one of my biggest problem with Endgame, was like they just butchered Thor.
I don't know why they did
They
that.
butchered Thor like they've been butchering Hulk since the first Avengers movie. Hulk was awesome in Avengers 1, and then every following Avengers movie, he's been nerfed to
He's
oblivion.
just pathetic.
He is really pathetic.
Weird. But, I've seen, Thor Ragnarok's pretty good. I think... You know what? I think that might be it. I can't really think of other good Marvel movies.
The Guardians of the
Guardians of the Galaxy. That's
movies.
what I'm missing. And
I liked
I haven't seen Shang-Chi yet.
So yeah, following Thor, we're going out of proportions with Shang-Chi that just came out.
Yeah.
But Shang-Chi looks good. Moving forward, I guess you could say after Batman vs Superman followed some pretty good Marvel movies. I mean, Age of Ultron, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I don't have any rage against the movie.
I haven't seen it, so
It's not bad. Ultron is funny, which is weird, but it's like the good type of like, oh, I'm an omniscient robot who knows everything about the world, so I would be so bored by all of you, which is like a cool type of funny, where
Yeah.
he's like he is the one who should be making quips like Tony Stark because he's based off Tony Stark's consciousness.
yeah.
You know, my problem is that he doesn't have enough to do, and he just turns into a generic film baddie in the end, where he's like, I'm gonna destroy the planet because robot.
Nice Alan Rickman impression. What was that?
That wasn't Alan Rickman. It was just he was just saying like, oh, I'm gonna blow up the planet because humanity sucks and everything will be metal. It's like, okay, that's stupid and really bad motivation.
And everything will be metal. What? Why?
It's just like it's unconvincing. He doesn't seem like he actually cares, because again, the character is played to be bored with humanity because of how much he knows. So he just sounds bored all the time. He's talking about his big grand plan for annihilating the human race, and he sounds like he's eating like a Snickers bar while he's talking about it. He's like, yeah, and then I'm gonna nuke the planet. It's like how Thanos sitting at the bar in What If. Thanos is sitting at a bar and he's just talking about, oh, I had this one idea one time, the genocide plan. He's joking about it, which I thought was a really good series actually. But it's like that. He's saying it with as much like care as Thanos does at a bar in like the middle of space. He's like, yeah, blow up the planet. Good idea, I guess.
There's no enthusiasm.
Vision is great though. That film introduced us to Vision, who I love, who is such a cool character.
Right.
He looks awesome. The fact that that's all practical effects is painful to me, because he is wearing like 8 pounds of hot leather that takes him 2.5 hours to put on every set.
I can't even imagine.
So they had to shoot all of his scenes consecutively at first because he didn't want to be fucked to be putting the suit on and off and on and off. But the later movies, they couldn't do that. So he just stuck with it because the film and the character made him a ton of money. But at first he was like, okay, I'll play Vision. I'll do it. But like, you're going to need to be like, you're going to need to fit my shots into a certain string of events. They could only shoot his shots on a few days because he didn't want to stay around for too long. I don't blame him. The suit is like 900 degrees, and they only learned to put cooling pads in it after that movie. That's why he's a bit thicker in the later movies. I don't know if you noticed that. He gets a bit thicker. He has cooling pads in the suit.
So he doesn't like die.
So he doesn't die. I think he looks cooler like that, but still.
Yeah. And then, okay, I have to get into a movie that I think we talked a little bit about last time, but I think we need to go more in depth in, because this movie made me realize how much I don't like Marvel anymore. It's not Black Widow, because I went pretty in depth with that one.
And that one's too recent.
Yeah, I'm talking Captain Marvel. This movie single-handedly made me lose faith in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Really?
Okay.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah, let's start with one obvious problem. Brie
And
Larson.
by the way, before you say we hate it because it's like a feminist movie, Bianca is the biggest feminist ever.
Yeah, I love a female lead. I don't even think she has to be like...
And I agree with you in that sentiment.
I love a female lead in, like, literally anything. Like,
Yeah.
there are so many pieces of media that I say, if the girl character in this was the main character, I would like this so much more than I do. But Captain Marvel, I don't dislike because it's a female main character. I dislike it because it sucks.
It's
Because,
terrible.
okay, again, the obvious glaring problem is Brie Larson. I mean, aside from literally everything else, but Brie Larson, I don't dislike her. I think she can be funny in some things. I like
okay
her
in Scott
Scott
Pilgrim.
Pilgrim, yeah. She's okay in that.
That's the one.
I actually really like her version of Black Sheep from that movie. She sounds great. I haven't saved my Spotify playlist, but it's like, I don't understand what she's doing here. She is just not that kind of actress. She plays like the quippy best friend in a rom-com. She does not play Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And I just sit there and I'm watching this and I'm like, what are you doing here, girl? Like, this is not your area of expertise. And I'm not saying that, oh, women shouldn't act in Marvel because Marvel is about men. No, look at, like, Florence Pugh in the new Black Widow. Like, she's the best part about the movie. And she's funny. And she is entertaining and quippy without being obnoxious and, like, just generally unlikable.
Yeah.
Like, women can act in these movies, and I've seen it happen. She cannot. Brie Larson cannot. It's just, there's no depth to the performance, there is no interest to the performance. It's just happening. Like, it's just existing. And I'm just left here, sitting here being like, well,
That's fucked.
she's doing it.
Yeah, it's a movie that's being
It's a
made.
movie. The plot is nonsensical, completely nonsensical. I don't understand the twist villain. I don't understand anything, really.
The villains in general and the whole, like, planet that she
Duh.
comes from.
Hear me out. Dark elves. the fucking.
Well,
that's
that's
they were the
Thor.
fake out villains.
Yeah, no, that wasn't Dark Elves. They were like
Who were-
random.
yeah, the
they were like
random
weird,
elves.
like
Other
Krell
elves.
or whatever they're called.
Other elves.
No, they were like Krell or
Yeah,
something.
the fake out villains.
And then we have the main villains who
Who
are
are terrible.
they're boring. Their society looks like a dumb, stupid, bad Star Trek society that you'd see for one episode and then move on from.
It seems like the most boring part of a Star Wars planet.
They're like Romulans without character. Anybody who likes Star Trek will get that. They're Romulans without character. They're just boring, and they have just sure they have a warlike and I guess you could say like I don't even know how to say it, like military based society, but that society is dumb and uninteresting, and it's ruled by a stupid AI who has a really bad name.
Yeah, I forgot what its name was.
Like Unity, which is like so generic because like that's like the AI, like the Unity is just the like so generic. It's the
Supreme intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd say single-handedly the best part about the movie.
It's the supreme intelligence. That's
Yeah.
it. That's so dumb.
The best part about the movie is every scene with Samuel L. Jackson. Because it's Samuel L. Jackson.
He doesn't even play that role very well.
He's not even that good in the movie, but he is the best part about the movie. Every scene with him and Brie Larson, making quips at each other, having that sort of, back and forth dialogue. I think that stuff's pretty funny.
I am annoyed
I
that
don't
they
mind
made
it.
him last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye, which is like such a foreboding thing to say. And he lost the eye to the fucking cat.
Like, seriously?
Like, that was such a letdown, dude.
Like, it's funny, yeah, but
But
that's Nick Fury's backstory?
Yeah,
That's
it's
why he
taking
has the
a
eye patch?
serious backstory, like something that could have been real intense and cool to learn about Nick Fury, being like, oh yeah, he got scratched in the face by a fucking cat.
Which I think is I guess the idea, in theory, is funny. Like, oh, it sounds like it's a reporting thing, but he actually is just embarrassed that he got scratched by a cat.
But it's such a fundamental part of his character, and that's what this movie does so bad, is it ruins Nick Fury's backstory. This film is his origin story, pretty much. And being such a cool, badass guy, it's just not there. It's not interesting. I'm like, why is this Nick Fury?
There's the, like, pilot girlfriend, wife, I think? I can't remember if she was a girlfriend or wife. The pilot, other pilot.
Yeah.
And her kid, who is single-handedly the worst actor in the movie. I have never seen worse child acting than this, and I've seen bad child acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can agree.
Yeah.
But no, Captain Marvel, massive letdown. Really telling of like the mentality that Marvel started taking.
Yeah.
Because they were making Infinity Wars. They were like, we need to put something out, so let's just put this out. I don't know if you'll like it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people took the stance. I don't like it because Captain Marvel was a guy. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is that it sucks.
That Captain Marvel was originally a male character that they made into a female character, and when it happened in the comics, nobody complained because she was equally as full of herself and kind of horrible as the male Captain Marvel. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really a translation, and that's something that people should notice. Captain Marvel is not a likable character in the comics. If
Yeah.
you've read Civil War, she just turns into this just horrible, awful. Why? She tries to kill Miles Morales because he could potentially pose a threat to the world.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and so she tries to like murder a teenager because there's a guy with future vision who one of the realities he saw is that Miles Morales fucks something up and kills the world. But like she's just terrible. She goes like Vite levels of like, oh, I'm the good guy because I'm helping people and because I'm making peace. It's like, yeah, but you're also murdering teenagers. So,
Yeah.
You're not really the good guy here. But that's an interesting character flaw. And we don't have that in the new Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
because
she's
in
just
the old
boring.
Captain Marvel, she's so powerful, she has a disconnect from
And I
humanity.
think that's the biggest problem. And this leads into a bigger discussion that we can also get into because it is very, very relevant in Marvel movies about general, film. Just because you give a woman a sword or something akin to a sword, like powers, does not make her interesting. Okay, just because you give her, like, I'm gonna give a couple of examples here. Like, you look at some characters that are iconic for being really good female characters, like Trinity from The Matrix, Hermione Granger, like, these are like all the characters in Little Women, because these are characters. They have personality traits. They have problems with their personality. They have good things about their personality. A really good example, once again, is Hermione. She's smart, but she's also kind of a know-it-all and can be really bitchy sometimes, even if she is very helpful and kind. And I think that that's not to compliment Turf K. Rowling's writing, but that's a good example of how to. I always say that every time I compliment somebody about Harry Potter, I say I'm not trying to compliment Turf K. Rowling. It was an accident. But basically, like, that's a way of writing a girl character who is a character. With any fucking Marvel movie woman that isn't like Gamora or actually written decently.
The well-written ones.
Yeah, that isn't like the very few well-written ones. That's the biggest problem. They assume that because you give a woman a sword and make her say one or two badass things in the whole movie, that everyone's going to like her, which is not
Even
true.
like Pepper. I like Pepper in the original
Pepper's
Iron Man
good.
movies.
And if we want to go back to Scott Pilgrim, the reason why I'll always like Knives Chow more than I like Ramona Flowers is because Knives Chow is a character. She's funny. She's a personality. Ramona is just kind of there. And I'm like, okay, do something. And she's like, I'm the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
It's horrible
I
to
have
say.
terrible
It's
exes,
horrible
and
to
I
say
want to
that
date
she's,
Michael
like,
Cera.
kind
And I'm
of a
like,
wallflower. Like, she has a ton of problems, but again, problems also don't make a character interesting.
Yeah.
It's about depth. It's about how human is this person.
yeah. And that's why I don't like, again, like I said in the first episode, I don't like Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow either. Sorry, the second episode. I don't like Scarlett Johansson Black Widow either because I think that she just isn't a character. She's just not even present. And it's sad because I feel like Black Widow could be so much more interesting and Captain Marvel could be so much more interesting if they were willing to make these women characters rather than just women with power or sword.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't comment too much on that because that's more of your expertise, but I feel like what you just said made a lot of sense. And it's definitely interesting that they push a lot for all of that stuff, especially in the marketing for Captain Marvel. They push so much for the feminist identity of the film, which I think is just way more polarizing towards the film because it invites a certain fan, so you better appease that type of fan.
Yeah, and I am that type of fan, and I was not appeased by this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, moving on from here, I guess, this is when things start happening. So, first, the first nuke, Infinity War drops, okay? The first bomb. Infinity War, I think, is maybe the best mainstream Avengers-based Marvel movie. It's fantastic.
It's really good.
It's really fucking good. It blew me away because I was always kind of like passively amused by Marvel up until that point. And even with movies like, I think Black Panther came out after Infinity War. No, it didn't.
Before.
Came
Black
out
Panther's
before.
good.
Even with Black Panther is pretty good. It's pretty good. I was never captivated. I was never like, wow. And then Infinity War dropped. And I think the reason why is like, Black Panther was the first Marvel movie for me to have a really good villain. Because Killmonger is like a really good villain. He's on par with like a DC, Christopher Nolan DC villain. You know, so like, he's realistic. He's got realistic ambitions. He feels like a person who wants something out of a problem. He doesn't want to just blow up the world because he's cynical about humanity. You know, he has ambitions. He has a plan that he's going to exercise once he gets the power that he's working for. And he works for it as well. So he commands respect in that movie. And then you juxtapose that, and then Infinity War drops, and I'm just going to say it. I think Thanos is a better written villain than Killmonger. And I agree. I love Killmonger. And I love Killmonger as a villain. Thanos is just wow. You know, the performance is wow. The CGI, surprisingly, is wow.
I can't stop thinking about Thanos' car. It never leaves me.
and like I'm so glad that everyone was complaining in the original pictures is like, why doesn't he have his armor on? Why is he like wearing this like tank top thing? Why doesn't he like look cool? Why doesn't he look? It's because he's way more human when you can see him. His gestures are so human because he's like wearing normal clothes, you know?
Right.
You can see the way he's using his body language to communicate, which is the problem with the film I'm going to mention, is that without all the armor, he's very close to a human being, and because of that, you relate to him more, and you start to understand. And obviously, his plan is crazy, and you would never agree with in real life because of the degrees of separation and psychopathy that you have to have, but it's still well written. And the way it's not that you need to believe it. It's that you can see that he believes it. He believes in his plan. He has a mission, and he's not just saying things because he's been told to. The actor who played him is saying them because he is acting as Thanos in that moment. And that's why I think the acting and the way that the film is set up, like the way that they move from planet to planet, my only problem is the dwarf, Peter Dinklage. Which I thought was just really weird.
I forgot he was in that. Like, why was he in that?
It was just a weird scene, although I did like the hammer that Thor got. It's a cool hammer, you know?
Yeah, we love cool weapons.
It's a cool, very Marvel scene. Thor goes out into space and holds a thing with the sun open. I'm not going to talk about how powerful Thor would need to be able to withstand the might of an actual sun.
But it's fine.
It's fine, whatever. It's also, the sun is way too small. Like, you can see him compared to it. Do you know how big the sun is in real life? And our sun is small. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. That scene was really dumb and, like, kind of poorly thought out. They also horribly mispronounce every Viking word. Like, Nivedalair? Are you kidding me? What are you saying? You having a stroke? It's very much, being somebody who loves Norse mythology, the horrible mispronunciations in the Thor films hurt me on a level in which I cannot put into words. I love Norse mythology, and them going around saying, like, hell him. Like, certain characters say, like, hell him. It's like, are you...
What's the original word?
Helheim.
I was about to say, I think it's
Helheim. Are you kidding me? Are you ridiculous? Are you a clown human?
Honk, honk. Anyway, like, okay, so we have, like, 8 minutes left on this, but to summarize...
But then we also need to go into the final major... hit.
We know where this is going.
Justice League. Justice League. And then also Suicide Squad. And also new Suicide Squad, which isn't so bad. I would urge everybody to see new Suicide Squad. That's what I'm going to end this off on. Watch the new Suicide Squad movie, and the reason it's good is it's because it's by James Gunn. Tim Gunn, what the fuck am I saying?
Gunn. Good morning, designers.
It's by James Gunn, and he made Guardians of the Galaxy, so it feels like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and so it's hilarious, and it has Margot Robbie actually playing a good version of Harley Quinn for once.
Shit.
Yeah. Crazy, I know.
I'm a huge comic Harley Quinn fan. So
and it also has the guy who made the Scapegoat video, if anybody's seen it.
Oh my god, it's so good.
You need to watch that movie. You need to watch, it's a really good one, but basically, to summarize quickly.
Justice League and Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad, really disappointing. They tried to bring the Joker into the modern DC cinematic universe.
Leto.
And Jared Leto butchers it so badly that he's not in any of the other movies.
Is just... okay. There are a lot of actors that could play a really good rendition of the Joker. Jared Leto is not one of them.
And I feel like he could if he knew how to do it.
No, because Jared Leto's an interesting actor. Jared Leto has had, I'd say, objectively 3 good performances. Requiem for a Dream, Dallas Buyers Club, and Blank, because I know someone else is going to be like, he was good in Blank, too. I'm sure he was good in Blank, too. I just probably don't remember. Jared Leto is...
Terrible?
Yeah, pretty bad. He's good in movies where he, is underneath the guise of a very overpowering director or screenwriter, where he is being told exactly what to say and how to say it.
What we're saying is when Jared Leto has control, he almost always fucks it up.
Yeah.
Almost always. So that translates into the movie. His version of the Joker, terrible. Deadshot, played by Will Smith, not even a character. I can barely remember anything about him except for the fact that his daughter is so poorly acted, it just makes me cry every time.
Harley Quinn, awful. I don't
Really bad. And everybody loved, listen, Margot Robbie looks like Harley Quinn.
I love her.
She acts like Harley Quinn, but she's not Harley Quinn.
See, I think that, again, as a huge fan of Harley Quinn in the comics and of the animated Batman show that I've seen, Harley Quinn is one of my favorites. So to just destroy her the way that they did in the first Suicide Squad makes me so mad, because that is not Harley Quinn. She was never like that. She also doesn't look like a clown, which makes me really fucking mad. Her name is Harley Quinn. She's a Harlequin, you idiots. Why does she look like, I don't know, no, she looks like a badly, like a bad stereotype of a prostitute you'd see in, like, a 1970s movie. She'd be, like, on the streets and, wailing for men. She looks like that. And I'm like...
Wow, that was harsh.
It was very harsh.
It was harsh.
But,
okay, well,
hey.
We're going to translate now into the sad portion of the review. Justice League. And I'm going to talk about both Justice League by Joss Whedon and Snyder League, which is the Zack Snyder version.
Justice League and Snyder League.
Here's what happened, okay? Zack Snyder started writing Justice League. And then something happened. I don't actually know exactly what. I think it was something involving his brother or like a family friend. It was very sad. And it was, from what I read, when I read it a long-ass time ago, I remember it being worth leaving the film for. He left the film, okay? Joss Whedon, director of the original Avengers movie, says, hey, I can help out with this and fix the movie. Movie drops, absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
Incomprehensible. Okay, so many characters are brought up. The Flash is literally just comic relief, which would work if he was a good Flash, but he doesn't act like the Flash.
The Flash TV show is like having a stroke.
Well, but we're not talking about that. That's not even mainstream DC cinematic universe. But
it's not allowed.
The Flash in the DC Cinematic Universe is really bad. He's played really bad. He's awkward. Every single joke that he says doesn't land. It's either bad delivery. It's kind of like an awkward kid in school giving a bad joke.
Yes.
It's like, why are you saying this? Why are you talking right now? You're wasting my time. You feel bad, but at the same time, you kind of agree. In any case, if we're going back to the horrific nature, everybody else is also boring. Jason Momoa doesn't have anything to do. He just kind of stands around and looks like a muscle wall the whole movie. Gal Gadot, which we didn't get to talk about much in this, but her movie was pretty good. Wonder Woman was pretty good.
1984 was terrible.
1984, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman was pretty good. And then we translate from Wonder Woman into this, and she's just not doing anything. Ben Affleck, it looks like one drink away from suicide the whole movie.
They CGI'd Henry Cavill's upper lip.
Yeah.
He was so not committed to the movie that he didn't even care to shave his upper lip. So they just CGI'd his upper lip on.
Yeah, because he was doing Mission Impossible. And so for the Joss Whedon reshoots, which, by the way, he requested most of the movie reshot for no reason. And everyone was like, why? Why are we doing this? And he's like, 'cause I'm a director,
Stanley Kubrick energy.
Yeah, 'cause I'm a director, And so Henry Cavill didn't want to shave off his lip for Mission Impossible Fallout, because that movie is an actually good movie and worth his time. So he just had them CGI his lip, which is terrible. He looks so like funny. He has a hippo lip the whole movie.
It's so funny.
And obviously we can talk about the horrible performances. We can talk about Gal Gadot screaming at Superman, which is just terrible. The acting
so
was
many
awful.
conceivable levels.
And then we have the Snyder Cut, which everyone is like, this saved the movie for me. This is great. And all I can say it was okay. But I still would have wanted so much more. And my biggest problem is yes, they removed most of the bad stuff. They made Steppenwolf, the villain of the movie, actually good. But the whole movie is supposed to be like an Infinity War style teasing the main villain. But the problem with Infinity War is that Thanos is a part of Infinity War. You know?
Right.
Darkseid, who's the villain they're teasing in Justice League, shows up for like maybe a scene. It's a good scene. It shows how powerful he is. But that's really it. You don't get to meet the guy. You don't get to know about why he's doing what he's doing. And I get Darkseid doesn't really have the most deep ambitions. He's kind of like one of the, I'm going to blow up the world type guys.
Right.
But he says it. The reason he does it is pretty unimportant when you compare it to just the sheer power he commands as a character.
Right.
Like him on screen, he's a terrifying presence. He's scary looking. He's powerful. He's ridiculously OP. I mean, he consistently kills characters like the Flash constantly. You know, so he's a threat to be forced to be reckoned with, and he just doesn't get any time in this movie, and that's really disappointing. And then following that, we got Endgame, which was pretty good. You know, it was pretty good.
I think it was good.
It was a good wrap up. I felt
think
like
there
they
was a
killed
part-
Thor.
there
They
was,
shot Thor out in the back of they took him out back in
They
the,
took him out back and just executed him.
yeah.
I think the scene where Captain America gets the hammer is great, and the scene where I think it was T'Challa and a lot of the Wakandan people, like, and then everybody else shows up in the background. As a person who hasn't even seen that many Marvel movies, I lost my mind at that scene.
I don't know. I feel like that was really big nostalgia bait. But I also
it's
did
not
like
as bad as the last Skywalker.
Okay.
Rise of Skywalker.
the Last Skywalker.
The Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker.
It's
together.
not as bad. I thought that was a bit pandering. What I really liked was a lot of the flashback scenes. My favorite part of the movie is when they go back to meet Howard Stark, and Tony meets Howard, and he has to like pretend he doesn't know him. That's a great scene. That whole area is like so good because you can see like there's a genuine like emotional connection.
Oh yeah, and I cried so hard.
It's sad. That's the saddest part of the movie, honestly.
No, I cried so hard at the ending. You say love me 3000, I will lose my mind.
That was really sad. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
horrible.
Can't believe, that hit different. But it was also really nice to have like he got to conclude that whole saga by meeting his dad.
Yeah, and then they continue that super well with
Captain America.
With Captain America, and also carry over Tony Stark's death really
in the later Spider-Man
movies.
Into Far From Home.
Yeah.
Like they made it an actual as big of a deal as it would be. You know, Tony Stark dying is kind of like a world leader die. It's kind of like Keanu Reeves just eating it if Keanu Reeves consistently saved the world every day as well, you know?
That's what he does. He saves my life every single day.
So it would be really sad and people would be like really bummed about it and it would definitely change the world. And they also wrote the whole Infinity War snap into the changed world really well. Like people are going to be confused. I've been gone for 4 years. All of my upperclassmen seniors have graduated 4 times over. All my friends have graduated out of high school and I'm still...
Yeah, the freshmen are going to graduate before we do.
Yeah, it's like... It's crazy, you know. It's the whole universe's logic changes, and I like that.
Yeah, because you did miss 5 years.
Yeah, like 4 years. 4 years
I just think
got
of Paul Rudd just appearing and being like.
Oh yeah, that was
kind of funny.
I was but I don't know at the
vampire.
I don't know at the end of the at the end of the day, I really liked Endgame. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a good wrap up, but I also felt it had some problems. I feel like a lot of the humor didn't land. Thor is just murdered, like I said. But then I also like that they drew attention. They drew attention to characters that I didn't put much consideration into. I mean, obviously we got some interaction in Guardians 2 with Nebula, but she wasn't really a character. She was kind of a character. She had really good interaction with Gamora, but she didn't really do all that much.
Right.
But they actually kind of fleshed her out, made her a character, and I kind of liked that.
Yeah, I like Nebula.
And she had some interesting, like, dilemma where, like, she had, like, the whole past version of herself who was still fucked up by Thanos, you know?
Yeah.
And they had that whole fight, and they had to find out which one was which, and it's, like, they had a cool visual cue of which Nebula is which because of the red thing on the side of her head.
Right.
You can tell if you're looking at the original Nebula if she has the red piece, and so when she steals it, when the evil one steals it, it's like, oh shit.
Oh shit.
I see what's happening here.
All right. So now that we're up mostly to modern times, skipping a lot of things. We skipped a lot of things here, but to sum up, Marvel versus DC. I can say safely that I am not the biggest fan of either of these, film universes. I'm not a huge fan. But to you, who do you think would win?
Right now, Marvel's won. Marvel has won. What they're putting out for the past, like, obviously Black Widow hasn't been very good.
Yeah.
Obviously the things following, but like we're about to get a new Spider-Man movie. We had Shang-Chi, which was amazing, apparently. I haven't seen it. And we have so many movies coming out, and Marvel just keeps racking in the cash flow. And people keep watching these movies. And for Marvel fans, these movies are perfect. Listen, I'm not about to go on talking about how great Marvel fans are, because they're ridiculous clown people. But, I mean, Marvel fans know what they want in a Marvel movie. And so if they say that this film is good, it means something. And so the fact that Marvel fans are loving these movies coming out, except for Black Widow, which is almost universally hated, it just kind of goes to show, like, yeah, Marvel's in a good place right now. DC is not.
Yeah.
Diehard DC fans will still defend these movies because they're just diehard DC fans. They've got problems, but they're not as approachable. You can approach any of these Marvel movies and kind of get what's going on. Everybody knows Tony Stark died, even if you didn't see Endgame. So going into Far From Home, you didn't really need to see Endgame. It would have definitely helped the experience.
Yeah.
My God, but you can still get what you get from that movie without seeing it. And you can still enjoy it. You can't like say, Justice League without seeing Batman vs. Superman. Because you don't know why Superman's just fucking dead. And, like, it's not even well written, and he comes back and he was only dead for 5 minutes, and Jason Momoa's just here, and what's going on? Yeah. It's confusing.
And I like Jason Momoa, so I'm like, why you gotta do this to
Yeah, I like Jason Momoa, and he looks amazing in Dune, but looking at...
If you didn't getting ads for it, but...
Yeah, but looking at Marvel, what they're putting out now, and DC, what they're putting out now, which is essentially nothing since Suicide Squad.
Right.
There's no comparison. There's not... Marvel is like the thing of the century right now, and they still are. It blows me away how they can keep the hype going. Remember when they dropped all 20 trailers?
Yeah. No, everyone lost their minds.
Everyone lost their minds. And that was modern. It's like they still have it. Yeah. And as much as I may not love them, and as much as I prefer DC comic stories, DC has better stories, I'm sorry. DC has better villains, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they've got all the hype going. Marvel also has the hype going with things like Loki, like all these shows they have on Disney.
Marvel is just consistently dropping fucking hits, and they do not pause. They do not stop. Yeah. And I think that Marvel wins, even though I may prefer the old DC movies ad infinitum in comparison to some of the modern Marvel movies. Like, nothing that Marvel will ever be comparable to the Dark Knight trilogy. Right. However, they don't not have their merits simply because they will never amount to being as good as a Christopher Nolan movie. Most directors won't even get anywhere near that good in their lives. So I think that what they have now is a good thing. And I think that they can keep this going if they don't put out more Black Widows. Yeah. Which they haven't. I mean, Shang-Chi was apparently amazing. Yeah. Again, I keep saying allegedly, apparently, because I've never seen the movie. But, people saying that it's good proves that they still have it. Right. I thought that after Endgame, they were going to hit a wall because they couldn't do anything. But they didn't. And I'm a little bit proud of them for that. And I'm glad that they're keeping the legacy of Stan Lee alive. Yeah. It's a cool thing that they've done. Yeah. And so I feel like that's where we can wrap it up. Marvel is still going strong, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I really don't
love them or hate them. Yeah. Marvel is still...
I only went for the Stan Lee cameos. And rest in peace, boy.
Yeah, dude, that was sad.
Yeah, no.
Fuck me up.
Nice way to end on the worst possible note.
No, but it's his legacy. And I'm glad that they've managed to keep it alive past his death. And they haven't bastardized it like they did with Apple.
This is very, very, very true.
Take a Steve Jobs quote, apply it to Apple now, you can see the hypocrisy. Yeah. But anyways, that's all the time we've got. And by all the time we've got, I mean, we've gone over maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But we don't have a set schedule for these things.
Yeah. So, thank you very, very much for listening to episode 3 of Don't Talk During the Movie, and we'll see you next time.